Before a stunned crowd, Crown Prince Christian points an accusatory finger. With a young woman on his arm, he declares loudly that at this very moment, he is breaking his engagement to Alistair and Grid. Aquaria stands frozen, her expression one of utter shock. Her outward shock, however, masks a completely different internal reality. A wave of pure elation washes over her. She inwardly cheers, celebrating that the engagement has finally been broken and the long-awaited condemnation event has been achieved. The scene shifts back a few moments in time to the graduation party at the Elysian Royal Academy. Aquaria stands alone as her heart begins to pound, watching her fiancé, the Crown Prince, enter the hall with another woman. He stops directly in front of her, his expression cold as he asks if she has anything to say. Aquaria meets his gaze steadily, thinking to herself that this is the very day she has been waiting for. In response to his challenge, she performs a perfect, graceful curtsy. With a calm smile, she inquires if there is some excuse she is required to make. As she rises, her mind reaffirms the facts of her situation. The man before her is Christian, the crown prince of this very kingdom, and her fiancé. Her gaze then drifts to the woman clinging to his arm. She identifies her as Alice Loomis, the central figure in this entire affair, the heroine. Christian's voice cuts through the silence, accusing her of lacking the dignity and compassion befitting a noble. He proclaims that his duty is to the people of the nation, the very people she has supposedly wronged. He points at her again, his voice ringing with finality. He declares that anyone who cannot understand this simple truth is not qualified to be his fiancée. Aquaria stands firm, her hands clasped before her, thinking to herself, here it comes. She faced him with a steady gaze as Prince Christian, pointing a finger directly at her, made his declaration before the entire assembly. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the breaking of their engagement. It was the very outcome she had been aiming for all along. In his fury, the prince shouted that she was unpleasant to look at and ordered her to leave at once. In response, Aquaria cried out his name, her voice filled with feigned desperation. Her performance continued as she pleaded that her voice couldn't reach him. As he turned his back and walked away with Alice, the grand doors slammed shut, marking the final scene for the villainess, Aquaria. The moment she was alone, her act vanished. A brilliant smile erupted on her face as she celebrated her success. She had perfectly fulfilled her role as the villainess, and now, with Aquaria's part in the story finished, she was finally free. 2 years passed. In a new, peaceful life, she cheerfully threw open a window to greet the day, then turned to a cupboard, ready to begin her work. This was the life she had chosen after escaping her identity as Aqualicia and Grid, the infamous villainous daughter of Duke and Grid from the popular Otome game, Elysian Alice. Before this life, she had been an overworked employee at a demanding company in Japan and a devoted fan of that very game. Though she didn't know how it happened, one day, she simply awoke to find she had become Aqualicia. She found herself in a world akin to 19th century Europe, but with a crucial difference. Magic had developed in place of science. Light magic illuminated rooms, fire magic-powered stoves, and ice magic served as refrigeration. Embracing this new reality, she began to knead dough, finding simple joy in her new, quiet existence. She gently pokes the dough, satisfied with its texture. Today, she'll be baking baguettes and boules, along with some soft butter rolls. With practiced hands, she kneads and shapes the soft dough, preparing it for the oven. This passion for baking was a hobby from her previous life. On her days off, she bakes from morning until night, then cuts and freezes the bread. She can then rebake it for breakfast or use it in other dishes until her next day off. She loves bread more than anything. It was a stark contrast to her first trial after becoming Aqualicia, when she found the food completely unsuited to her tastes. The cooking in this world was frustratingly simple, lacking complex preparation methods and therefore flavor. Food was simply boiled, stewed, or grilled. The bread was especially terrible, rock-hard, and typically eaten only after being softened in soup or stew. She grimaces at the memory of trying to bite into a tough loaf. As the daughter of a duke, Aqualicia was fortunate. She had the money to have soft, fluffy bread made for her, but she herself possessed no knowledge of how to bake. A sudden fear gripped her. What if she took actions that broke from the game's established world? Could it cause an error, break the world itself, or drastically change the ending? The thought was too much to bear. After all, she was a huge fan of the game Elysian Alice. She was determined to see her favorite characters get the happy ending they deserved. From that moment on, she resolved to pour her heart into playing the role of the villainess. She would perfectly execute her part to ensure the targeted heroine, Alice, would reach the true love ending with the Crown Prince. The downfall of Aqualicia was a necessary part of the plan. She would be exiled as a disgraced novice nun and serve for 1 year. Afterwards, she would be allowed to return to the ducal domain, where a small house in the forest awaited her. Finally, her free time could begin. Her plan for a peaceful life required meticulous preparation. It had taken a full year just to find and secure a stable supply of high-quality wheat. She also negotiated with a local boy for the delivery of sugar and salt, ensuring all her basic ingredients were accounted for. She had also commissioned artisans to develop a special oven that ran on magic, a marvel of local engineering. With her own homemade bread, yeast carefully cultivated and stored, she felt confident. If any other necessary tools or materials were unavailable in this world, she resolved to simply create them herself. With all the preparations complete, the time for experimentation had arrived. She threw herself into the work, kneading dough with focused determination. Again and again, she tried, facing one failure after another in her relentless pursuit of the perfect loaf. Her persistence finally paid off. She took a bite of a freshly baked roll, her eyes widening in delight at the delicious result she had worked so hard to achieve. This success marked the dawn of a new era for this world's bread. With a tray of perfectly shaped dough ready for its second fermentation, she knew she was on the verge of a breakthrough. She sat for a moment, a quiet smile on her face. The simple joy of baking was a reward in itself. Until now, she had baked only for her own enjoyment, but she decided that today would be the day she finally shared her creation with the people of this world. At the town's newly established orphanage, Aqualicia has been helping care for the 15 resident children. Standing before them with a gentle smile, she presents a meal she has prepared, wondering how they will react to the food. Her thoughts turn to a recent discovery. The bread in this world isn't limited to the bland, uniform type she knew from a game. A vast and wonderful variety exists, and she feels a powerful urge to share its deliciousness with the children. Breathing in the rich aroma of baking, she solidifies her new resolve. While she has her own financial struggles, she decides to push aside thoughts of the game's ending and focus entirely on spreading the joy of bread. Her mind fills with all the types of bread she wants to introduce. She plans to start with the hard breads common in this world, something she remembers from her past life. But her ambitions grow to include croissants, brioche, sandwiches, and even burgers. She closes her eyes, a hopeful smile on her face, imagining the children's surprised and delighted expressions. With hands clasped, she acknowledges that the real surprise will be how different her bread is from the standard game bread. The only question remaining is whether they will accept it and eat it. From the chimney of a nearby building, a soft puff of steam rises into the air, signaling that the baking is complete. The children take their first bites, and their reactions are immediate. They cry out in amazement, asking what it is and exclaiming how delicious, sweet, and beautiful it is. Aqualicia watches them, overjoyed by their genuine responses. Their initial skepticism vanishes, replaced by enthusiastic demands for more. Aqualicia happily assures them that there are plenty of refills. The children marvel at the soft, fluffy texture, questioning if this could possibly be real bread. The chorus of praise continues. One child remarks on how the outside is crispy, while the inside remains soft. Another wholeheartedly agrees, declaring it's truly delicious. While two of the orphanage girls enjoy the fresh bread, one expresses her love for the fluffy texture, while the other prefers the harder, chewier kind. Listening to their debate, Aqualicia thoughtfully considers her options for a potential business, noting that the visually impressive baguettes and butter rolls seem to be the most popular and would be perfect for a shop. Her thoughts of a shop prompt the girls to ask if that's her dream. They wonder if such a venture would succeed, reasoning that bread so delicious must be too expensive for anyone but nobles. She quickly dispels their worries with a bright smile, announcing that she made the bread for everyone and has no intention of raising the price. The children can only gasp in disbelief, asking if she truly means it. Her reassurance sends a wave of excitement through the children. One boy declares that if he had the money, he would buy out her entire stock. Another asks if she thinks customers will really come. Despite their enthusiasm, a flicker of doubt crosses her mind. She worries that because her bread looks so different from the norm, people might be hesitant to try it. From below, the children's voices rise in a chorus, promising to let everyone know how good it is and get them to try it. Their unwavering support moves her. She tells them she was waiting for those words, as she had been thinking the same thing. The children eagerly ask if they can help her hand out the bread in town, admitting they'd be anxious if she went alone. She happily agrees. Overjoyed, the children celebrate their new task. One of them thanks her profusely, promising that they will bring their own share of bread for the day as a token of their gratitude. Later, an elderly priest approaches her while eating a piece of her bread. He remarks on how well she has learned to work, crediting the great saint for teaching her. Then his tone shifts as he addresses her by her full, disgraced title, Aqualicia and Shunford, the villainous duchess. He states that becoming the subject of town gossip is a fitting reward for her, leaving Aqualicia stunned. He continues his assessment, stating that the rumors aren't wrong. He himself witnessed her trying to corner the heroine near the crown prince. He clarifies that while he cannot forgive her, her current actions are for her own sake. In response, Aqualicia quietly brings a finger to her lips, asserting that there is no truth to the gossip, and asking him to keep her identity a secret. With the matter settled, her thoughts return to the children's joyful faces. That evening, she walks through the woods carrying a basket, satisfied with her plan to sell the leftover bread in town. As she muses on what to bake next, a sudden sound startles her. Her expression shifts instantly from contentment to alarm as she senses she is no longer alone. She found the source of the disturbance, a figure lying motionless on the ground. Holding her lantern aloft, she saw it was a man in armor. He wasn't moving. Startled, she called out, identifying him as a holy knight and asking if he was all right. Rushing to his side, she couldn't believe a holy knight of the Imperial Guard would be found in such a state on her land. She urged him to hold on, but as she reached for him, his hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. Her heart leaped in her chest as she realized he was conscious, though just barely. She carefully helped the knight into a sitting position, propping him up against the base of a tree. He slumped against her shoulder, his eyes still closed, his breathing shallow. She watched over him, her expression a mixture of concern and curiosity. As she studied his features in the lantern light, her heart fluttered. He was incredibly beautiful, she thought, so much so that he could be displayed in a museum. A faint blush rose to her cheeks. Shaking off the distracting thought, she tried again to rouse him, asking if he could hear her. When he didn't respond, she gently placed a finger beneath his nose and felt the faint warmth of his breath. He was alive. With renewed urgency, she called out to the holy knight, pleading for him to hold on. He groaned, his brow furrowing in pain before his eyes slowly fluttered open. For a moment, their gazes locked, and she gasped in surprise. His eyes were a brilliant gold. The sight stunned her. Wait, golden eyes? She thought, her mind racing. In this world, only those who carried the blood of the sun god Real, the royal family, were said to possess such a trait. Her thoughts spiraled. Could he possibly be royalty? No. She quickly dismissed the idea as impossible. Most people had silver eyes. His must have just appeared golden under the flickering lamplight. It was surely a trick of the light. As she tried to compose herself, the knight shifted, pressing a hand to his head. She asked if he could understand her. He looked at her with a dazed expression, unable to form a complete sentence, only murmuring, I am. She pressed on, asking if he was in pain anywhere. He responded that he had no injuries and felt nothing. Then he clarified that his entire condition was because of a demon's blood. The words hit her with the force of a physical blow. A demon's blood? She exclaimed in disbelief. She recalled that now, with the heroine's divine protection, most of the spirits and monsters had vanished from the land. Her thoughts were interrupted by the knight, who clutched his head and asked where he was. Aqualicia explained they were in the Bayringle Forest, part of the Anshunford domain. The knight seemed troubled, noting how far off his coordinates were. She deduced that he must have used magic to travel and collapsed after exhausting his strength and mana. Realizing his dire state, she urged him to wait while she fetched a potion. The knight looked on, surprised, as she dashed away. Moments later, she was inside her home, quickly retrieving a small bottle from a cabinet. Returning to his side, she offered the potion, gently telling him to drink it slowly. He accepted with a quiet apology and drank from the vial. As he finished the drink, a soft glow enveloped his body, the potion's restorative magic taking immediate effect. He looked down at his hands, a wave of relief washing over him. He turned to her with a sincere smile and thanked her. She stammered a reply, flustered. With color returned to his face, she thought his destructive power had only increased, but in a more charming way. Composing herself, she asked if he was planning to travel to the holy capital, pointing out that it was a 2-week journey by carriage from their location. He affirmed his duty, explaining that as a holy knight, he had to report the successful demon subjugation and then proceed to the next mission. This revelation worried Aqualicia. If such powerful demons still existed, then the heroine's protection wasn't as effective as she'd thought. She protested, exclaiming that it was far too dangerous for him to leave so soon after needing a restorative potion. In response, he introduced himself as Arin and, with a gentle smile, offered to do anything she asked of him. Aqualicia was stunned into silence, swallowing nervously as she tried to process his words. After a small cough to regain her composure, she insisted that he come to her house to eat and rest. He began to object, but she quickly countered, asking if his plan was to simply leave and collapse elsewhere. Such an action, she pointed out, could very well be fatal. She pressed her point, explaining that if he were to waste time by being reckless, he would ultimately lose the very time he was trying to save. The most wicked act, she argued, will be to throw away his own life. She concluded by firmly stating that he must eat and rest properly, so that he could then fly to the holy capital with his strength fully restored. He listened, her words sinking in. She continued to persuade him, explaining that for the sake of his comrades, he should take the time to rest and recover properly. She added that rushing would be counterproductive. After a moment of consideration, Arin's expression softened, and he formally asked if he could be in her care. Her face lit up with a brilliant, joyful smile. She enthusiastically agreed, of course, and promised to prepare some delicious bread for him. Aqualicia recalls her unique circumstances. She was reincarnated into the world of the Otome game, Illusion Alice as the villainess. With the knowledge from her past life, she resolves to pursue her greatest passion, baking. She declares her mission to spread the joy of delicious, soft bread in this new world, where the local fare is unpleasantly hard. Her new life took an unexpected turn when she collapsed from mana exhaustion. Fortunately, she was found and taken in by a holy knight to recover. Now, standing before him, she feels a blush creep up her face, finding him almost overwhelmingly handsome. He, the holy knight Arin, overhears her muttering and questions her self-deprecation. He dismisses her claim of being a rakish woman, stating that if she were, it would cause problems for him, all while his own heart begins to race. To show her gratitude, she has prepared meal. With a cheerful smile, Aqualicia announces that it is ready, holding out a tray. The meal consists of a homemade dried tomato croque madame and a steaming bowl of minestrone soup. A closer view reveals the glistening egg atop the toasted sandwich, a dish entirely foreign to this land. Arin's eyes widen as he sees a loaf of bread, its texture visibly soft and warm, unlike any he has known. The croque madame is a complex creation, bread layered with ham, cheese, dried tomatoes, and fresh basil, baked with butter, then smothered in bechamel sauce and topped with a fried egg. The accompanying minestrone is full of vegetables and beans, making for a highly nutritious meal. Aqualicia internally congratulates herself on the excellent menu choice. She sets the plate down in front of him, warning him to be careful of the heat. Arin stares at the unfamiliar dish, a bead of sweat forming on his temple, and manages a quiet word of thanks. He looks up from a steaming meal, his surprise evident. He asks if this is truly bread. Aqualicia confirms that it is, adding that the dish is very hot, and asking if he typically eats bread with a knife and fork. The holy knight stared at the dish before him, a double-layered creation of considerable thickness. He questioned if a dinner knife could even penetrate such bread. In response, Aqualicia smiled brightly, assuring him that it would be fine. Her bread, she explained, was a special creation. She encouraged him to eat before it cooled, and he looked up, his curiosity piqued by her words. Heeding her advice, he pressed his knife into the bread. To his astonishment, it sliced through with impossible ease, revealing a core of molten, stretching cheese. He could hardly believe it had cut it all. He lifted a forkful to his lips and took a bite. A wave of shock washed over his face as the flavors met his palate. His initial shock gave way to pure delight. He declared it was incredibly delicious, marveling at the combination of the smooth, warm white sauce, the rich cheese, and the runny egg yolk. The bread itself was a revelation, unbelievably soft, yet with a perfectly crisp and crunchy exterior. He continued to savor the meal, identifying the sweetness of the ham, the fragrance of basil, and the tang of tomato. The rich white sauce, he noted, was a perfect complement to the egg. It was a culinary experience unlike any he had ever had. Then, a new realization struck him. The bread itself possessed a distinct sweetness, a quality he had never encountered before. As he pondered this, Aqualicia simply smiled. Seeing his curiosity, she revealed the source. "This is the bread I use for the dish," she explained, gesturing to a basket filled with thick, impossibly white slices. He stared in disbelief, taking a slice into his hands. The texture was unlike anything he knew. "This is bread," he stammered. "It's so soft and fluffy." Aqualicia happily confirmed that it was. He asked if he could try a piece on its own. Before she could even offer him butter, he took a bite. The experience was entirely different from the cooked dish. The bread was soft, moist, and possessed a subtle, gentle sweetness. Aqualicia observed him, realizing that the holy knight had a remarkably sensitive and accurate palate. Still marveling at the slice in his hand, he turned to her and asked where she had acquired such a thing. With a gentle smile, she revealed the truth. She had baked it herself. She then added that she was considering opening a shop nearby, leaving him momentarily speechless. Arin considers her plan, his mind racing. He suggests that if she sold this bread in the capital, it would be an explosive success among the nobility, bringing great profit. He is taken aback when she clarifies her intention to open her shop right here in this town. She smiles gently, explaining that while the price might seem low, she has no intention of charging exorbitant amounts. Her goal is to make it a daily staple for the townspeople. Arin, holding the slice of bread, is stunned by her plan to sell it so inexpensively. She clarifies that while the material costs are indeed higher than for common bread, it's not an insurmountable difference. The key, she reveals, is the yeast. In this world, the concept of using yeast for baking is unknown. With her knowledge of how to cultivate her own starter and access to a proper oven, she can replicate the bread from her past. She concludes her explanation with a quiet sigh, acknowledging that her situation is strange but unavoidable. Arin listens, his expression unreadable as he contemplates her story. After a moment of silence, she shifts the topic, a thoughtful expression on her face. She asks Arin if she can pose a question to him, and he readily agrees. She then observes that in the last 2 years, the number of demonic beasts appearing seems to have decreased considerably. He seems surprised by her observation. She presses on, asking why he was so beaten up when she found him, and why his fellow knights seem to be constantly exhausted. She wonders if this is related to the information she has about the declining monster population. Her confusion deepens. "What are you talking about?" she asks. She explains her understanding of the world's events. A saintess, having gained the protection of the 6 great spirits, was supposed to have appeared by now. In every scenario she knew, the heroine was destined to awaken to this power. She recalls the specific timeline she expected. In the version of events where her own engagement to the prince was annulled, the heroine was meant to successfully commune with all 6 great spirits in the story's epilogue, thereby awakening as the saintess. Following that awakening, the newly ordained saintess and the crown prince were to marry, protecting the kingdom and its people, ensuring a happily ever after. Since a full year has passed since that graduation ceremony, she reasons that the heroine must have already awakened into her role. She concludes by stating that the prince's new fiancée is a woman named Alice Loomis. The name hits Arin with visible shock. Seeing his reaction, Aqualicia is bewildered, wondering what she could have said to cause such a response. His composure shattered. Arin could only stare. Seeing his reaction, Aqualicia shot up from her seat, demanding to know what was going on. She asked if he was perhaps engaged to Alice, a fact she had never heard. He confirmed it was true, leaving her utterly stunned and insistent that it couldn't be possible. He clarified that while he had been told as much, the information was supposed to be confidential. In response, Aqualicia gathered her skirts in a formal curtsy, her expression somber. She introduced herself properly, Aqualicia Lastia and Shunford. The name struck Arin with the force of a physical blow. He now understood he was speaking to the former duke's daughter. She clutched the fabric of her dress, recalling the moment just before her own engagement was broken. The crown prince himself had told her that the heroine was engaged to a holy knight. She had no reason to doubt his word. Arin, however, broke through her memory, explaining that he had hidden his identity for an investigation and, at that moment, was not engaged to anyone. Her confusion mounted. He elaborated, stating that while he possessed information regarding Alice Loomis, the divine oracle concerning her had not yet been fulfilled. A chilling realization washed over her. She had reached the story's ending. So why was this epilogue deviating from the script she knew? She could only agree with his assessment. He continued, revealing a grim reality. For the past 2 years, the number of demonic beasts had been increasing, not decreasing. The holy knights were stretched so thin they couldn't get adequate rest, a fact underscored by his own direct deployment to the subjugation grounds. His gaze hardened with conviction. Such a dire situation, he asserted, would be impossible if a true saintess, blessed by the 6 great spirits, actually existed. The weight of his words left her flustered. She chastised herself for her foolishness. She had been so focused on the epilogue that she hadn't considered the state of the world. It seemed unbelievable that such an epilogue could even occur under these circumstances. She let out a weary sigh. Changing the subject with a gentle smile, she remarked that, given the situation, she was glad he could at least have a meal and some rest. She asked if he had eaten enough, to which he replied with a question of his own. Was there anything sweet? Her face lit up as she suggested pan pudding. Arin repeated the unfamiliar name, questioning if it was a type of bread. She eagerly explained that it was a delicious bread-based dessert, made by soaking pieces of baguette in a pudding mixture and baking them in the oven. She beamed at his acceptance, announcing cheerfully that she would prepare the dessert right away. Arin returned her smile, expressing his eagerness to try it and formally accepting her hospitality. As she went to retrieve the ingredients, however, her cheerful demeanor faded, replaced by a deep-seated worry. Opening the icebox, she questioned what was truly happening. The world was not following the story's epilogue as it should have, and she realized she needed to confirm the facts for herself. This unsettling realization led her to a single, unavoidable conclusion. A vision of her family's grand estate filled her mind. She knew, with certainty, that she would have to return to the Anshunford ducal house at least once more. The thought of her past brought forth a vivid, jarring memory. She saw herself not in an apron, but in a stark, formal uniform, her hair tied back severely. In this vision, Crown Prince Christian lounged behind her with an air of detached arrogance as an unseen voice called out her name. Tia. A pristine white carriage pulls to a stop before the grand facade of the Anshunford ducal house. A footman assists Aqualicia as she alights, having finally arrived at her family's estate. As she steps inside, a young man who had been reclining on a chaise lounge leaps to his feet. He rushes toward her, calling out her nickname, Tia, before stopping short and questioning if it's truly her. His face breaks into a brilliant smile. "You've finally come home," he exclaims. This is Alzer Gerald Anshunford, Aqualicia's 26-year-old brother, a handsome youth with a refreshing smile who is known to be ruthless toward his sister's adversaries. He pulls her into a crushing hug, declaring how long he's waited for his Tia. Aqualicia grimaces from the force of the embrace, thinking to herself that another troublesome person has just appeared. Still holding her tight, he laments how lonely he, their father, and their mother have been since she left. The maids in the background weep with joy at their lady's return. His expression suddenly shifts to one of anger. He questions how much she must have regretted being forced to live in a small cottage in the forest despite her innocence. He grabs the ribbon at her collar, demanding that she value herself more. Aqualicia is stunned by his intensity. Just as quickly, his cheerful demeanor returns. He announces that the chef will be overjoyed to make whatever she likes for dinner, and that new dresses and accessories are being prepared. As he lists the arrangements, Aqualicia tries to interject, explaining that she must return by morning. His smile becomes chillingly sweet. He tells her to stop paying attention to that flea-level prince. He then offers, with a serene expression, to kill that fool for her if it would make her happy. Aqualicia is horrified, recognizing his words as blatant treason. She stares at him, aghast. "What?" she cries out, asking what he thinks will be left for him if he takes her away. She demands to know what he's even saying, but he seems genuinely confused by her protest. Aqualicia realizes the truth about her brother. He is a top-class individual, a genius blessed by the heavens in both academics and martial arts. He has everything, except for one critical flaw, his extreme devotion to his sister. To her dismay, she concludes he is, to an unbelievable degree, a siscon. He explains to his sister that he was with the Crown Prince and Alice Loomis earlier that day. With a gentle gesture, he suggests they have some tea prepared in the greenhouse. Aqualicia beams, expressing her delight at the idea. As Alzer takes her hand, he observes that her skin is a little rough, wondering if she has been overworking herself. He silently resolves that he cannot allow her to be forced into such a strained smile. Now seated in the greenhouse, Aqualicia is taken aback by her brother's stern warning. If she repeats her past actions, he will not forgive her a second time. He then calmly sips his tea and asks what she wishes to discuss, correctly guessing she wants to know about the Crown Prince and Alice. He mentions that while the nobles at the graduation party were sworn to secrecy, it's inevitable that rumors will spread among the common people. She presses him, asking if it's true that Alice possesses the qualifications of a saint. Alzer replies that he has heard no such thing, remarking that her reaction is identical to Arin's. Aqualicia sits quietly, her mind racing back to the moment she witnessed the spirits speaking to Alice. She remembers the prince's declaration that Alice was the beloved owner of a beautiful heart. Her brother continues his line of reasoning, stating that if Alice were truly a saint, her engagement to the prince would be unproblematic, even promising greater prosperity for the kingdom. He then questions what he himself is pursuing, realizing that if that were the case, then what he heard from Alice must be true. He turns to Aqualicia, his expression intense. He questions why the nobles would have unanimously approved the engagement if they were told Alice was a saint, especially when she is a heroine who tells such outrageous lies. His sister is stunned into silence by the accusation. He lays out his conclusion with conviction. The entire affair was a fabrication, a carefully constructed lie designed for the sole purpose of forcing the annulment of her engagement to the prince. Leaning back in his chair, he reflects on the events, admitting he had initially thought she had acted with considerable audacity at the graduation party. He then leans forward, asking her directly if she truly saw the spirits with Alice. Flustered, Aqualicia insists that she did see them, even as she internally acknowledges that she possesses no such spiritual sight herself. She looks up at her brother, confused, as he sits with his arms crossed. He dismisses her claim, stating that what she described, making water rain on flowers in response to a voice, is not sufficient proof of her abilities, as it's a simple feat even for him. His stern expression melts away into a warm smile. He greets her affectionately, asking if she's been well and noting her good mood. He expresses his own joy at finally being able to see his sister again, then turns to introduce her to an unseen companion. He calls out to her as Tia, explaining that a dear friend of his has brought a gift for her. As he speaks, a ribbon of pure water materializes from thin air. The magical stream of water dances around her, sparkling in the light. She gasps in wonder at the beautiful display. From his seat, Alzer casually asks if he's proven his point, that he too could perform such a feat. She processes what she just saw, realizing it was simply a water magic trick that anyone could learn. Her thoughts drift to her predicament. She recognizes that regardless of whether this world follows the game's script, her fate seems sealed. Meanwhile, Alzer chuckles to himself, musing that a certain prince has been getting close to her lately. His pleasant demeanor vanishes, replaced by irritation. He complains about the situation being convoluted, positing that if Alice Loomis had lied, everything would fall into place. He then turns to Aqualicia, acknowledging that she likely sees Alice as a good person, and concedes that perhaps not everything was Alice's fault. She looks at him with resolve, stating her belief that this world revolves around the game's heroine and that Alice undoubtedly has the qualifications of a saint. She asks him to accept whatever fate befalls her and promises to continue supporting their family. He listens, then softly agrees, acknowledging that for now, he can only watch over her as he makes her a promise. The scene shifts to a bustling town square where Aqualicia, with renewed purpose, holds a tasting event for her bread. Children eagerly call out to her as the samples run out. A young boy takes a bite and exclaims in delight at how soft and sweet the bread is. The same boy approaches her again, asking if there is any more bread left because he wants to take some to his mother. Smiling kindly, she offers him a small package. His face lights up with pure joy as he looks at the package containing mini butter rolls and petit France bread. Aqualicia's voice instructs him to share them with his mother, and he shouts his thanks, beaming. He happily runs off with a note his mother gave him. Meanwhile, Aqualicia continues her tasting event, handing out samples of her trial bread. She explains to the townsfolk that it can be eaten with soup or drinks, and that a shop selling it will open nearby soon. She muses on the convenience of this world, where the literacy rate is high and her words are automatically translated into the local language. This certainty reinforces her belief that she is indeed in the world of an Otome game. She knows that in such a world, the heroine is destined to become a saint, and the key events of the story are unavoidable. Having fulfilled her role, she resolves to put the past behind her and focus on what she truly wants to do. Her attention is then drawn to a young girl helping her. Aqualicia asks if they are out of samples, and the girl confirms it, though she can see there are still people waiting to try the bread. The girl, Lilia, reports that she did a quick count, and they've already distributed around 200 pieces in just a single hour. The sheer number leaves Aqualicia momentarily stunned. Overcome with gratitude, she pulls Lilia into a tight hug, exclaiming how amazing she is. Lilia, surprised by the embrace, wonders aloud how such delicious bread could be given away for free and is equally amazed that it all disappeared within an hour. Lilia beams, suggesting they should make double the amount next time, certain that the crowd will return. She thanks Aqualicia and declares that she wants to become a cool person just like her. Touched by the compliment, Aqualicia listens as Lilia muses that with this success, they might be able to try making even more challenging new breads. Her mind fills with possibilities for the future. Sweet cream-filled buns, savory breads for meals, ham and cheese rolls, garlic baguettes, and even baked curry bread. Turning to her young helper, Aqualicia asks whether she would prefer sweet or savory options. Lilia looks confused, admitting she doesn't know what savory means. The question catches Aqualicia completely off guard. A shocking realization dawns on her. The people of this world might not be accustomed to savory or spicy cuisine at all. She recalls that even the food in the capital lacked any real spice. This means her plan for curry bread, which she considered a guaranteed success, was based on a flawed assumption. It is a complete blind spot. At the house where Aqualicia now resides, Arin arrives to express his gratitude for her help the other day. She humbly insists she did nothing special, merely what was right. He compliments her, noting that while she looked beautiful in armor, she is just as striking in the Holy Knight's uniform. He then asks how she has been since the Anshunford ducal family took her in. Aqualicia brushes off the formality, asking him to simply call her Tia. When he hesitates, questioning if using a nickname is appropriate, she reassures him that she would be happy, prompting him to agree. He softly calls her Tia, and the name sends a jolt through her, making her feel as though her heart might burst. Trying to cover her flustered state, she quickly dismisses his concern and invites him to stay for brunch, which she is about to prepare. Arin agrees, noting that the wonderful smell he noticed outside must have been from her cooking. In the kitchen, Aqualicia proudly surveys the thick curry roux she prepared for curry bread. She muses that it might be a bit spicy for the children, making Arin the perfect person to test it. With a determined smile, she tells him to sit and wait while she finishes. She begins to cook with practiced ease, first preparing bacon, eggs, and a pancake. Then, she spreads butter on a slice of bread, adds the curry filling, folds it, and crimps the edges with a fork before placing it on a pan over low heat. Arin watches the entire process, captivated. The brunch is soon complete. A plate featuring bacon and egg pancakes, toasted curry bread, and a cup of leftover bean soup from the day before. Presenting the plate to Arin, she invites him to eat. He looks at the meal with wide-eyed curiosity, admitting he's never seen such a dish before. While he recognizes bacon and eggs, Aqualicia encourages him to try them together with the pancake. As he begins to eat, she watches him, thinking to herself that despite her initial impression of him being stiff, his posture and manners are quite beautiful. He takes a bite, chewing thoughtfully. His eyes widen in surprise. The flavor is a complex wave. The sweet syrup from the pancake spreads through his mouth, followed by the savory meat and fat of the bacon. Then a salty and sharp, spicy kick hits him, black pepper. The unexpected combination leaves him momentarily stunned. His expression melted into pure delight. He declared that the various flavors were in an exquisite, delicious balance. Aqualicia smiled, agreeing and recommending he try it with the egg yolk as well. He took another bite, and the rich flavor of the egg yolk added yet another layer to the taste, leaving him in awe. Seeing his reaction, Aqualicia expressed her happiness that he liked it and urged him to try the toasted curry bread while it was still warm. He then bit into the bread with a satisfying crunch. His eyes shot open in astonishment, a single word escaping him. Delicious. Her relief was palpable. She confessed she had been worried by his strange expression. Puzzled, he asked what this was, noting that it looked like the same bread as before. She confirmed it was, but explained that its crispy exterior and completely different taste made it a unique experience. He inquired about the filling, wondering if it was some kind of spice dish. Aqualicia explained it was curry, a stew made with many spices. He remarked that it was his first time tasting it, thoughtfully describing the sweetness of the vegetables and richness of the meat, followed by a gentle spice that left a clean aftertaste. The gentle spice gradually intensified, a tingling sensation spreading across his tongue. Seeing him squint one eye, Aqualicia looked on with concern, admitting that she had tried to make it on the sweeter side. His momentary discomfort vanished, replaced by a bright smile. He assured her that he actually liked the lingering spiciness and found the dish incredibly delicious. He then declared with excitement that the realization of curry bread was one step closer. She expressed her surprise that he ate it so readily, explaining that most people have never tasted anything like it and would likely find the combination strange. He met her gaze with unwavering confidence, stating that there were certainly others, like him, who would love it. He confidently predicted that it would undoubtedly become a popular product. His certainty left her speechless, her eyes wide with wonder. A thought formed in her mind, If Arin believed it, then it must be true. Inspired, she declared that they should make another prototype, and that she wanted to try making another menu item she had in mind for her shop. She then turned to him and asked if he would be willing to help. The unexpected offer caught him completely off guard. He clasped his hands together earnestly, asking if, should she find his help a nuisance, he could at least be allowed to observe her work. Aqualicia's face lights up with understanding. She explains that she completely gets his feeling, as she herself used to love watching videos of bakeries preparing their wares early in the morning. However, she also expresses a practical concern. If an amateur were to help, they might accidentally ruin the bread. He seems flustered, admitting that he simply wants to see more of her incredible skill. Then, his expression shifts to one of pure, radiant joy. He asks if she truly means it, thanking her profusely and eagerly accepting her offer to help. His brilliant smile is so intense that Aqualicia flinches back, shielding her eyes as if from holy light. Despite being overwhelmed, she finds his boundless, childlike curiosity absolutely wonderful. Regaining her composure, she asks him about the next indispensable menu item for her shop. With a determined look, she presents her idea, cream bread. And so, the condemned villainess continued her job change into a saint through the art of baking. Arin inquires about the pastry they are about to make, identifying it as cream bread, a sweet bread filled with custard. He observes that it seems to be a widely popular treat. Tying her apron with a determined flourish, Aqualicia confirms his guess and announces that it's time to begin. She immediately sets to work, demonstrating the precise steps for making the custard. First, she whisks eggs and sugar together thoroughly before mixing in flour. Separately, she heats milk in a pot, adding butter just as it warms. With careful movements, she tempers the egg mixture with the warm milk, stirring until it becomes a smooth, glistening liquid. Following her instructions, Arin watches intently as the mixture is returned to the stove. He understands that this is the most critical stage, requiring constant stirring over medium heat with a wooden spatula until it achieves the perfect, heavy consistency. He vibrates with focused energy. The effort pays off as the liquid transforms into a thick, glossy custard. Holding up the pot, Aqualicia proudly announces that the custard cream is complete, its surface shimmering under the light. As she pours the finished cream into a shallow dish to cool, Arin, looking on with a hint of awe, asks if she used to manage this entire process by herself. She simply confirms that she did. He expresses his surprise, questioning how it's possible. Aqualicia explains that the key is having the right technique and procedure. With those, she assures him, it can be done even without great physical strength. She admits that while the work is certainly not easy, having his help made a significant difference. A thought then crosses her mind. If only she had a mixer, the steps before heating would be incredibly simple. Beside her, Arin beams, looking as pleased as a happy puppy. Her desire for a mixer intensifies. She reflects on the nature of this world, where the 6 elemental magics, fire, water, earth, wind, light, and dark, are highly advanced, but science has been left behind. In such a place, developing a machine that runs on simple electricity is an exceedingly difficult task. Despite the challenge, she resolves to create one someday. She acknowledges that while she has left her family home and doesn't wish to use the ducal house's influence, this is a personal, family-related endeavor that she cannot rely on others for. Her determination is absolute. The sweet, inviting aroma of the finished custard fills the kitchen. Aqualicia suggests they eat it with some leftover bread, offering Arin the first taste. He eagerly accepts, his expression bright with anticipation. Internally, Aqualicia feels a quiet joy, thinking how much she wants him to enjoy it. Her concentration was broken by a faint, inquisitive voice. It seemed to be asking if she could hear it, then cheekily demanded she share her cream. Her startled reaction caught Arin's attention, and he asked what was wrong. Aqualicia explained she heard a child's voice, though they should have been alone. Arin confirmed he heard nothing, leading her to the unsettling realization that the voice was speaking only to her. The voice then posed a strange question, asking what kind of animal she liked, listing off deer, tigers, and even dragons. The peculiar, boyish suggestions made her smile despite her confusion. Deciding to indulge the mysterious entity, she mused that while she didn't understand its intent, she would answer honestly. With a thoughtful expression, she declared her preference, a cat. Her spoken answer left Arin baffled, as he had heard nothing before it. As Aqualicia realized she'd spoken aloud, the voice cheerfully confirmed her choice, and with a flash of light, it declared its understanding. In that instant, a large, fluffy creature with 2 tails materialized from the light, landing gently in her arms. Her eyes widened in utter shock. She held the unexpected arrival, stammering in disbelief as she wondered aloud where it could have possibly come from. The being was extraordinary. Its fur was a deep crimson like flickering flames. Its eyes shone gold. Its ears were sharply pointed, and its long tail was as black as ink. As Aqualicia asked what it was, Arin could only stare, equally dumbfounded. The creature then turned to Arin with a wide, cheerful grin, presenting itself as the cat he must have wanted. His confused expression prompted Aqualicia to realize that this strange being was, in fact, supposed to be a cat. It turned back to Aqualicia, who was stammering in confusion. The creature asked if she didn't understand, then calmly introduced itself. I am Ifrit. The name struck her silent. Her mind reeled at the name. She stared, wide-eyed, wondering aloud if this could possibly be the spirit of fire, one of the legendary 6 great spirits. Beside her, the holy knight Arin could only watch, his face flushed in utter confusion. In response, the creature puffed out its chest, striking a grand, sparkling pose with its paws spread wide. It confirmed its identity with gusto, proclaiming that it was indeed Lord Ifrit and demanding that it be properly revered. The large, crimson, two-tailed creature strikes a pose, proudly declaring that he is Ifrit. Aqualicia gasps his name in awe, her mind racing as she recalls that he is one of the 6 great spirits, alongside those of light, earth, water, wind, and darkness. As she tries to comprehend the situation, Arin looks on in utter disbelief, realizing it must be the spirit of fire. Ifrit, meanwhile, playfully bats at Aqualicia's face. She pulls back slightly, her confusion mounting. She insists that this cannot be, explaining to Ifrit that spirits are supposed to be intangible entities. If that is the case, she asks, then why is she able to touch him? The spirit explains that it is the Saintess who grants them physical form and allows their voices to be heard. He declares that through the Saintess, they evolve from mere spirits into holy beasts. Aqualicia is stunned, remarking that this is the first she's ever heard of spirits being given bodies and wondering what a holy beast even is. She turns to the knight, desperately asking Arin if this is true. He solemnly confirms that such tales are indeed part of the legends. He elaborates with a serious expression, clarifying that only the Saintess can hear the voices of the spirits and grant them corporeal forms. By doing so, she raises them to become holy beasts, who then serve as protectors of the nation. This revelation sends Aqualicia's mind reeling. She questions the entire scenario, momentarily getting sidetracked by the thought that she would have preferred a dragon as a familiar. Still, she internally admits that Ifrit's fluffy cat form is undeniably cute, before shaking her head to focus on the more pressing matter. The ancient legends describe the Saintess's sacred duty. By receiving the power of the 6 great spirits, she gains the ability to prevent the emergence of monsters. Her daily prayers purify the heavens, and a great prayer offered to the heavens has the power to make all monsters vanish completely. Her memory flashes back to the world she knows, the game, illuminating Alice. In that story, the only one who could communicate with the spirits was the heroine, Alice. The reality of her situation crashes down on her. She grabs Ifrit, her voice filled with panic, demanding to know why she can hear his voice. She vehemently denies being the Saintess, insisting it must all be a mistake. Ifrit tilts his head, genuinely confused by her denial. Why, he asks, as Aqualicia internally panics, realizing she is the villainess. Ifrit states a fundamental truth of their world. The one who becomes the Saintess is the heroine, not the villainess. That is an established principle. The spirit asks if it was indeed she who heard his voice and gave him a physical form. Aqualicia, holding the creature, can only stammer in agreement, unable to deny the events that just transpired. Nearby, the holy knight Arin watches them in silence. Her mind races with confusion. She questions why such a deviation from the story is occurring, especially to her. The spirit, sensing her turmoil, asks what is happening and why she seems to dislike the idea of being revered as the Saintess, pointing out that her personal feelings on the matter are irrelevant. She reaffirms her identity to herself. She is Aqualicia, the villainess. It is a role she must not forsake, and she absolutely cannot usurp the position meant for the heroine. Yet, she cannot bring herself to voice this truth to Ifrit or Arin. The thought of telling them they're merely characters in a fabricated story, a cruel and unthinkable act, is too much to bear. She's the only one who recognizes the anomaly, the only one who knows this world is a game. Therefore, she concludes, she is the only one who can do something about it. Turning to the spirit, she begins to speak his name. He, however, is completely absorbed in a meal, exclaiming that it's just like food he's only ever dreamed of. As he happily eats, Aqualicia recalls that he was likely drawn to her because of a bug in the game's custom story feature, a bug she had heard about before. She tells him this should celebrate him gaining a physical form. Internally, she hopes that once the game's bug is corrected and the true heroine becomes the Saintess, he will fulfill his duty to protect the nation. Ifrit, ever focused on food, asks what's available. Her thoughts drift to the children, imagining them enjoying cookies and cocoa by a warm fire. Inspired, she announces that she will make some for him now. The spirit's eyes widen in delighted shock, his entire body puffing up with excitement. He excitedly confirms if she's truly making cookies for him. Overjoyed, he nuzzles against her, purring that he likes her. Aqualicia smiles warmly, assuring him that she often bakes for the children and he can count on her. She then invites him to call her by her nickname, Tia. After a moment's consideration, the spirit begins to chant the name with glee, wagging his tails furiously. Flustered by his adorable display, she playfully scolds him for being so cute as he continues to affectionately nuzzle her. She holds Ifrit close, a gentle smile on her face as she asks him to wait. Her expression hardens with resolve as she vows to stop lazing about. She will find the cause of this power bug. She decides, and she will fix it, continuing to embrace the spirit. She promises that until she can restore the proper scenario, she will take full responsibility for him. She offers to grant any wish he might have, so long as it's within her power, including providing him with as much food as he desires. Unseen by her, Crown Prince Christian watches from the woods, wondering aloud what she is doing baking bread. He sighs, covering his face in distress. The sight of the spirit's birth seems to have been seared into his mind, leaving his heart in turmoil. He mutters the name, Arin. In response to his call, a figure in a dark, hooded cloak steps out from behind a tree. The person informs the prince that it is time to return to the holy capital. Christian quietly acknowledges the instruction. He hesitates, however, glancing back toward Aqualicia's location. He tells his companion that he cannot leave just yet, explaining that something significant has occurred, something far beyond a simple incident. His expression hardens with the gravity of his realization. This, he thinks, is a major event that could shake the entire nation. The condemned villainess, daughter of Duke and Shunford, has become the saintess after baking bread. The scene shifts entirely. In a bright bedroom, a young woman with long, light-colored hair awakens in bed next to a shirtless man with long, dark hair. She seems utterly bewildered by her circumstances. She lies perfectly still, her eyes wide with shock as she processes the unbelievable situation. As the man beside her begins to stir, she jolts upright, flustered and stammering. She thinks to herself that while she may have wanted to meet Grid-sama, having such an audacious dream is too much. She tries to calm herself, insisting it's just a dream, but her panic returns when the man transforms into a small dragon and curls up in her lap. Her attempt to count her blessings is completely derailed. She is overcome with a flustered heat, steam practically rising from her head as she holds the man, Grid, in her arms. He looks up at her, dazed and confused, questioning what is wrong with her. His confusion abruptly turns to panic as he jolts awake in a bed, shouting that this is all wrong. He kicks his feet in alarm, feeling a sharp pain. The commotion draws the attention of an older woman, the innkeeper, who appears at the door demanding to know what is going on. The sudden movement sends Grid tumbling out of the bed and onto the floor. Still sitting in the bed, Eliana looks on, completely startled by the chaotic turn of events. Just then, a man in a dark cloak bursts into the room, confronting the innkeeper. He declares that she is an outsider here, his voice sharp and commanding. He rushes past her, shouting for someone to wait. He insists that there will be no extra charges beyond the lodging fee and that this is not an attempt to flee. Eliana watches the scene unfold, her expression one of pure shock. The innkeeper, incensed, turns her anger toward Eliana. She scolds the young woman for brazenly bringing a man into her room. Eliana tries to protest, stammering that it's a misunderstanding. She continues her frantic explanation as the cloaked man asks what happened. Eliana insists that it's not what it looks like, explaining that this girl brought the man in and that if Grid-sama were to wake up now, it would be a disaster. He listens, a bead of sweat on his brow, privately wondering if the effects of a certain medicine are only now manifesting. The innkeeper interrupts, telling him to report to her later and to get the man dressed, questioning if he's some kind of street performer. As the argument rages, Eliana's mind spins with panic. She desperately wonders how Grid-sama got here and why he is naked. The cloaked man apologizes for the chaotic situation. He reveals that he found a letter left in his room, which he now holds up. He explains that he had been concerned that someone named Slough-sama was avoiding Eliana. He then asks her directly if something has happened. Eliana's eyes snap open, but the world around her remains hazy. She realizes with a jolt that she is still dreaming. A voice, perhaps her own, echoes in her mind, urging her not to flee from reality, to wake up before it's too late. The scene dissolves, reforming into a dense, sun-dappled forest, the setting for the next stage of her unconscious journey. Deep within these woods, a young woman with short, reddish-brown hair sits alone and vulnerable. Her solitude is broken by the arrival of 3 menacing men. 2 of them approach, one with long dark hair and a goatee, the other large and bald, both smirking as they comment on finding a girl all by herself in such a remote place. She looks up at them, fear evident in her eyes. One of the men coldly remarks that a young woman like her will fetch a high price, but suggests they should have a taste first. Her expression hardens with terror and disgust. Their leering is interrupted by an unseen disturbance. The dark-haired man clicks his tongue in annoyance, questioning the noise and dismissing it as just some monster that needs to be dealt with. Suddenly, a brilliant light cuts through the gloom. A figure descends from above, mounted on a magnificent winged steed, arriving amidst a shower of sparkles and flowers. The creature, a majestic winged unicorn, lands gracefully, its rider a composed man in a white uniform. The bandits are stunned into silence. The dark-haired man mutters in disbelief, acknowledging that for a monster, it certainly possesses an air of elegance. The captive woman stares, a glimmer of hope in her eyes as she cries for help. Her rescuer dismounts, asking if she's all right, but as he takes a step, his foot snags on a rope trap. He is violently yanked off his feet, crying out as he falls. He lies tangled on the ground as the woman expresses her concern. From the trees, another man emerges, wearing a wide-brimmed hat. He calmly states he's glad the woman is safe and offers to escort her to the nearby village, claiming his horse is faster than the flashy, conspicuous winged unicorn. The rider can only look on from the forest floor. The man in the hat turns his sharp gaze upon the fallen rider. He questions what kind of person summons a horse, admitting he first thought it was a monster, but now realizes it's something beyond human capability. He concludes with a cryptic warning. There are some things in this world that are better left unknown. He continues his confrontation, warning the uniformed man not to betray him. He threatens to plant a seed within the man's body that will sprout upon betrayal, turning him into a great tree, just like the woman now trapped within the nearby trunk. He states plainly that he is not human and is fully capable of such an act. The tense moment is fractured by a chaotic memory. Eliana, radiant with joy, riding a winged unicorn alongside a prince. This happy vision is juxtaposed with the traveler's own tormented scream, a memory of being told he was going to die, a fate he chose to defy. The dream fades, returning to a quiet street where Eliana is sweeping. She is approached by the man with a monocle, who explains he was told to look for someone named Grid at an Amelia's place, but now wonders if Grid might be with her instead. Shortly after, the man with the monocle slumps against a stone wall, utterly dejected. An older man sits with him, offering a simple piece of wisdom. Life is full of mountains and valleys. As he wallows in his misery, Grid appears, asking what he's doing and if they are acquainted. The older man explains that Eliana is searching for Grid, but the man with the monocle is struck by a single, painful realization. He is hated. His recent actions were a calculated, albeit pitiful, attempt to distance himself. He had abruptly cut off contact, feigned ignorance, and fled, all to annihilate certain elements from his life. The memory of Eliana looking at him as if he were filth flashes in his mind, a crushing blow to his pride. He feels his dignity as a dragon has fallen to the earth. Turning to Grid, he concedes that he should apologize first, admitting that what he said before was foolish. His composure finally breaks. He erupts, shouting that he never wanted to revert to his massive dragon form and lamenting that he destroyed his own inn. He confesses that he failed to create a perfect love potion for Eliana and feels useless at helping others. His tirade ends with a challenge to Grid, asking if he is satisfied now that everything has been said. Grid remains impassive for a long moment before quietly stating that he needs a little more time. The vague response infuriates the other man, who accuses him of running away again and shouts for him to be quiet. The older man encourages Grid to go. With that, Grid and the distraught man with a monocle turn and walk away together down the street. As they leave, the old man offers them a quiet word of encouragement. He remarked to his new companion that they had become quite friendly in a short amount of time. Alistair, however, remained silent, his gaze fixed forward. Changing the subject, Grid mentioned that he hadn't seen Slaw-sama and asked if Alistair knew where he was. Alistair simply replied that he did not know. Grid pressed on, explaining that Slaws was his roommate and had vanished after leaving a note that only said goodbye. He asked if Alistair had any idea where he might have gone. Alistair, revealing he had overheard their conversation the previous night, coldly told Grid to let it go, stating it was a decision Slaws had made. Grid's concern was palpable. Internally, Alistair reflected on the abnormality of the situation. As a dragon, he felt an innate discomfort in this land and wished only to move on to a place where he felt more at ease. As they continued through the town streets, Alistair paused, questioning if this was truly the right way to handle things. His resolve hardened, and he strode purposefully toward a nearby building, shouting for someone named Amelia to come out. The door creaked open to reveal a woman with glasses. She demanded to know what he was doing, admonishing him for shouting so loudly when he was meant to be in hiding. With his arms crossed, Alistair sternly asked her to explain herself. The woman, Amelia, looked past him to Grid, asking which one of them she was addressing. Before Alistair could respond, a serious-looking man appeared beside Amelia and identified the other visitor as Grid-sama. This news startled Amelia, but Alistair's patience snapped. He roared that it was him, demanding to know who else she thought he could possibly be. His furious shout echoed from the building, leaving Amelia utterly speechless and wide-eyed with shock. Inside, the confrontation escalated. Amelia frantically insisted that she had never been told he was a dragon. Alistair shot back that he had indeed told her. She countered that he never mentioned being unable to assume human form as a child due to a lack of magical power. Alistair's rage intensified. He accused her directly, shouting that because she failed to properly create an antidote, he had suffered a great humiliation in front of his own wife. He demanded that she take responsibility for her failure. Amelia, confused, asked what he meant by returning to his original state. He scoffed furiously, declaring he had no reason to thank her when her medicine was the very cause of his diminished size. Amelia, her own anger flaring, retorted that she would not be lectured by him. He continues to shout at Amelia, insisting that she must take responsibility. Unfazed, Amelia crosses her arms and tells him that arguing is pointless, asking what exactly he wanted her to say. Grid attempts to de-escalate the situation, urging Alistair to calm down, but Alistair shouts that he cannot speak of it. He then quietly reflects on how his wife came to despise him, questioning what truly transpired when he awoke. His internal turmoil erupts into a direct demand. He points at Amelia and commands her to create a potion that will erase a part of his memory, specifically from that morning. Both Amelia and Grid are taken aback by the request. Grid then states that this was the very reason he sought Amelia out, a revelation met with a stunned, disbelieving silence. The crimson, cat-like creature, Ifrit, devours a pastry with pure bliss, its eyes sparkling with delight. Watching him, Aqualicia clasps her hands, overjoyed at how cute he is and thinking that taming him was a stroke of genius. As Ifrit enjoyed his treat, Arin also savored a cream bun, remarking with a smile how truly delicious it was. He noted that while it was light, it was still satisfyingly filling. He continued, explaining that when people are tired, they often crave sweets or alcohol. For men, however, something that provides energy is often preferable to simple sweets, making the cream bun an ideal choice. Aqualicia listened intently, thanking him for the compliment. Her expression suddenly shifted to one of fierce determination. She declared that she couldn't give up on Anpan and that she absolutely had to find adzuki beans. A confused Arin asked what Anpan and adzuki were, while Ifrit also looked on with a questioning gaze. She explained that Anpan was a variation of the cream bun, but filled with a sweet bean paste. When Arin remained puzzled by the concept of an, she elaborated that it was from a Far Eastern country, though she wasn't sure if such a place existed in this world. She lamented that while beans were common, they were rarely prepared as a sweet dish here. He simply asked if it was delicious. Leaning forward with unwavering conviction, she insisted that it was unbelievably, incredibly delicious. Her excitement growing, she added that she could also make in butter. Arin questioned if sweet bean paste and salty butter would truly go well together. With a knowing smile, she reminded him that he already knew how good sweet and salty flavors could be. She then turned to Ifrit, announcing it was time for a taste test. To demonstrate her point, plates of toast were set out, one with just butter and another with honey drizzled over the butter. She noted that the last piece was for Arin. Following her instructions, Ifrit first tried the toast that had no honey. After a thoughtful bite, he declared it delicious, announcing that he quite liked this thing called butter. She explained that this was the salty element. Then, she prompted him to try the next piece, with both butter and honey. As Ifrit took a bite, his eyes shot wide open in utter astonishment at the new flavor combination. His fur puffs out in sheer delight. He declares the honey toast to be incredibly sweet and delicious, but notes that the combination with butter is even better. Aqualicia offers him a final piece, plain honey toast, for comparison. As he eats it, he confirms its sweetness but realizes the second piece, the one with butter, was far superior. He demands to know why the combination is so good. Leaning forward, Aqualicia explains that this is the magic of Amajapai, the perfect balance of sweet and salty. The revelation strikes them both. With fists raised in triumph, they declare in unison that sweet and salty is justice. Now fully converted, Ifrit proclaims that he wants to try and butter. Aqualicia agrees, her resolve strengthened. They must find adzuki beans. Her statement prompts Arin to ask what kind of beans adzuki are. Aqualicia describes them as being similar to kidney beans, but much smaller, with a reddish-brown color. She adds that her research indicates such beans aren't commonly eaten in this land, though she has a faint memory of something from the trial mountain. He falls into a thoughtful silence, his brow furrowed as he considers her words about beans not typically used for food. His contemplation is cut short when Ifrit suggests that gnomes, being plant spirits, might know about adzuki. Aqualicia is shocked, realizing he means the great spirits. When Ifrit offers to summon one, she panics, refusing outright as she cannot handle another spirit's selfish demands. Arin seizes the opportunity to ask Ifrit if Aqualicia can enthrall other spirits. Ifrit confirms it's a natural ability for his master. With new determination, Arin stands, declaring he must report the saint's enthronement to the capital. But Aqualicia quickly stops him. She quickly clarifies his assumption, explaining that while she may possess the ability to enthrall other spirits, it is by no means a guarantee. Whether they would actually acknowledge her, she insists, is an entirely different matter. He remains unconvinced, asking why they wouldn't acknowledge her. Flustered, Aqualicia simply apologizes and asks for a moment of silence. She then imagines deploying a perfect Dejiza, a flawless, prostrating bow of apology, to win over any difficult spirits, considering it a surefire victory in her mind. As she revels in her internal strategy, Arin lets out a sigh, bringing the topic back to the adzuki beans. He mentions that her earlier, intense reaction has just sparked a memory for him. He explains that in the eastern borderlands, there's a reddish bean called nagon that is consumed as a tea. When Aqualicia asks if it's different, he confirms it is. The mention of a bean-based tea makes her eyes light up. Adzuki beans are also used that way. With her hands clasped in excitement, she realizes this could be the very thing she's been searching for. Her eyes sparkled with renewed hope. Clasping her hands together, she eagerly declared her desire to try the nagon beans and asked Arin to tell her where the eastern borderlands were. He smiled warmly, offering to guide her to the Demetona border region, a place he knew of. Her excitement quickly turned to shock as she realized the immense distance, exclaiming that it would take more than a month to travel there. He reassured her, stating that they couldn't possibly halt the bakery preparations for such a long journey. The solution, he explained, was to use the temple's portal. The suggestion left her utterly speechless. Her thoughts raced. She knew portals were powerful tools, connecting to other worlds or distant lands, but they were reserved for priests and holy knights on official business. The idea of using one for a personal desire, to satisfy a need's craving, seemed impossibly extravagant. Before she could protest further, Arin suddenly knelt before her, his head bowed. He declared that his decision was made as a holy knight, asserting that her well-being was now more important to him than even that of the king. She stood abruptly, flustered by his words, and insisted that she was not such a valuable person in this kingdom. He looked up, his expression unwavering, and clarified that he would not allow the king to come to harm. He continued, explaining that with the last saint having passed away over 3 centuries ago, no living person had ever witnessed her power. All they had were legends. He confessed that, honestly, he had not truly understood it either. He confessed that while he never disbelieved the legends, he hadn't truly thought them to be real. Now, however, he understood that the existence of a saint was an incredibly rare and valuable phenomenon. His duty, he concluded, was to report her arrival to the capital without delay. However, he then softened his gaze, recalling her request for him to wait. He promised to postpone his report until her wish was granted, affirming that he could not bring himself to leave her side. His golden eyes gleamed with a powerful resolve. He made a solemn vow. As a holy knight, he would protect her. His vow to protect her, the saint, echoes in Aqualicia's mind. She processes the weight of his words, realizing the promise was made for her, and her alone. He then takes her hand gently, bowing his head to press a reverent kiss to her knuckles, a physical seal upon his oath. The gesture sends a jolt through her. Utterly flustered, her eyes swirl as a deep blush spreads across her face. She can only stammer his name in disbelief. He continues to gaze at her with unwavering intensity. Overwhelmed, she waves her hands frantically, pleading with him to stop and insisting that she understands his commitment. The tension finally breaks. Ifrit playfully asks why her face is so red, while Arin assures her she can leave everything to him. Composing herself, Aqualicia reflects that such moments are dazzling, and she formally asks Arin to be her guide. With renewed purpose, she cheerfully announces their next immediate goal, to find soybeans. Ifrit agrees, declaring it's time to prepare for their departure. With her hands full, Aqualicia enthusiastically prepares for the journey ahead. She gathers practical supplies, clothes that are easy to move in, tools for forging, and a stock of potions. Alongside a cheerful Ifrit, she is ready to depart. Her preparations complete, she emerges from her room, announcing that she is ready. Ifrit happily rubs against her leg as Arin's hand extends in welcome. He takes her offered hand, a gentle smile on his face as he formally asks if they shall depart. Flustered but willing, Aqualicia agrees, and he brings her hand to his lips for a chivalrous kiss. Their journey would be well supplied. For first aid, they pack potions, gauze, and towels. For sustenance, they brought bread, cheese, ham, pickles, and even homemade mayonnaise, ensuring they would not go hungry. In an instant, they arrive in the Exile region, at the border town of Demetona. Aqualicia marvels at their instantaneous travel via a portal, finding the experience fantastic. She observes that the architecture and the people's clothing are quite different here. As they walk through the unfamiliar streets, Arin explains his plan. He will procure some local clothing for them and listen for any rumors about a Nagon that has been seen drinking. Aqualicia agrees, her attention momentarily captured by a pleasant aroma wafting through the air. Their travels continue by horse-drawn carriage for several hours into the night. Aqualicia, weary from the long day, notes that Ifrit is accompanying them, having made himself invisible to others. The small creature looks utterly exhausted. Finally, they secure lodging for the night at a rustic inn. The room is simple but clean, with a pleasant scent of wood. Aqualicia asks Arin if such humble accommodations are acceptable for a nobleman, but he assures her it's fine, telling her to rest while he scouts the area. As he turns to leave, she quickly calls out for him to wait. With a worried expression, she explains that she has heard this area is quite unsafe, and she points out that the lock on their door seems very simple. Arin, flustered by Aqualicia's earlier concern, attempts to explain the situation. He begins by stating that she has the qualifications of saintess, but then trails off, admitting that the local villagers would not know that. Aqualicia, sensing his discomfort, gently prompts him by saying his name. He continues his faltering explanation, his hand covering his mouth as he admits that there were simply no other rooms available at the inn. The true source of his anxiety becomes clear as he voices his internal conflict. As a holy knight, the idea of sleeping in the same room as a lady is a profound breach of propriety. Understanding finally dawns on Aqualicia, and a deep blush spreads across her face. She realizes his concern was not for their safety, but for decorum. She apologizes profusely, explaining that her past life as a villainess must have dulled her senses to such matters. She quickly tries to defuse the awkwardness, brightly assuring the distressed Arin that she has no intention of attacking him and that, if anything, she should be the one concerned. To further ease his mind, she hugs Ifrit tightly, declaring that with her fiery companion present to protect her, there is absolutely no problem with them sharing the room. Her tone becomes more serious as she instructs Arin not to worry about her and to take the bed. She reminds him that she needs him well-rested for their trip into the mountains the next day. With a dejected expression, Arin quietly agrees. As she turns away, a chilling thought crosses Arin's mind. He realizes with absolute certainty that if her brother, Alzer, were to find out they slept in the same room, he would be killed. Aqualicia glances back, catching his grim expression and looking puzzled. Prompted by his strange reaction, she asks if he knows her brother. Arin's demeanor shifts to one of professional respect as he smiles and confirms that Alzer is an excellent and famous knight among their order. His answer doesn't fully satisfy her. She senses a deeper connection than mere reputation, recalling her brother's intensely protective nature. Deciding to let it go for now, she cheerfully suggests they rest for their early start. As they agree, the inn settles into the quiet of the night. Sunlight filters through the dense canopy of a forest, a place said to be so rarely entered that a dragon makes its home there. Aqualicia follows her guide, her face etched with anxiety. The world, which once seemed so full of wonder, now feels fraught with peril. Her resolve crumbles under the weight of her recent hardships. Having already been rejected twice and feeling as though she's being scouted for some unknown purpose, she collapses, pleading for just a moment's rest. Seeing her distress, Arin suggests they take a break. Aqualicia feels that if she sits now, she may not have the strength to get up again. Her life has become a downward spiral, sustained only by the faint hope of finding soybeans. As she despairs, Arin, their guide, and Ifrit enjoy a snack, with Arin remarking on how delicious it is. He tells her not to push herself, but she insists she'll be fine in a little while. Arin then offers to carry her, a kindness she acknowledges but politely declines. From the cover of the dense undergrowth, an unseen figure watches the group. Suddenly, the guide exclaims that he's found it. Aqualicia turns to him, her expression a mixture of hope and disbelief, asking if it's truly what they've been looking for. He points ahead, confirming his discovery. Her gaze falls upon a sprawling thicket of plants, heavy with long, hanging pods. She stares wide-eyed, a single thought echoing in her mind. Could this be it? She rushes forward for a closer inspection. The pods are brownish, just as they should be. Plucking one, she carefully breaks it open, and several small, round beans tumble into her waiting palm. A wave of realization washes over her. With a burst of pure joy, she shouts that they've found them, soybeans. The guide, smiling, asks if this was what she was searching for. She confirms it with a radiant expression, celebrating her success. Overcome with emotion, she leaps into Arin's arms. He catches her, his expression one of complete surprise as she hugs him tightly, beaming with happiness. He stammers her name, a blush rising to his cheeks. Aqualicia thanks him profusely, telling him it's all because of him. She silently reflects on how glad she is to have him as her escort. As he and Aqualicia celebrated their discovery, the guide looked on, puzzled. He stroked his chin, wondering aloud why they were so desperate to acquire such seemingly worthless beans. Aqualicia, kneeling by the plants, asked if these soybeans, called nagon, could only be harvested this season. The guide explained that the amount here wasn't even enough for a year's supply, and cultivating more would require a much larger quantity. To her astonishment, he then revealed that nagon could be harvested year-round. Her heart soared with the news. She clasped her hands together, realizing that in this world, which was nearly subtropical and lacked significant temperature changes outside of winter, she could obtain the highest quality natto whenever she wished. A plan began to form in her mind. Until she could successfully cultivate the beans herself, she would have the locals harvest them for her, and she would purchase them directly. Suddenly, Ifrit cried out her name, Tia. In an instant, Arin moved, shoving the creature forward as he stepped in front of Aqualicia, shielding her from an unseen danger. The abrupt motion startled both Aqualicia and the guide. "What is it?" she asked, confused. The guide, wide-eyed with alarm, pointed and stammered, "What is that red thing?" In response to the threat, Arin's expression became grim. He raised his hand, and with a brilliant flash of holy light, his sword materialized in his grasp. Ifrit snarled, confirming the danger. A monster! From his hiding spot, the guide stared in disbelief, finally understanding. "You're a holy knight?" he whispered, before urging them to be quiet. With his sword at the ready, Arin calmly assessed the enemy. He counted 5 sets of footsteps, then corrected himself. No, 7. He informed Ifrit there were 7 in total. The creature growled, warning that if Arin were defeated, it would have to burn the entire area, which would be a terrible outcome. He mused that he had seen countless powerful monsters in games, but these felt different. From the shadows of the forest, 7 massive, dark wolves with glowing eyes emerged, growling as they surrounded the group. Aqualicia, who had been exiled only to find a new purpose as a saint who bakes bread, covered her mouth in terror. She couldn't comprehend why such a cruel fate had befallen her. In a forest clearing, the group is suddenly confronted by a pack of 7 snarling, shadowy beasts. Aqualicia's eyes widen in shock at the sight of so many demonic creatures, while Arin stands firm between them and the children, his sword already drawn and ready for battle. Beside him, Ifrit casually remarks that his flames could easily incinerate the entire area. Arin agrees, but dismisses the idea, stating confidently that 7 opponents are no problem for him to handle alone. He instructs Ifrit to stay back with Tia. Hearing his plan to fight alone, Aqualicia gasps and rushes forward, grabbing his arm to stop him. He turns to her with a gentle, reassuring smile. He tells her it will be all right and that he will finish quickly, asking her to hold Ifrit. He adds that she shouldn't be troubled by a threat of this level. As she takes hold of Ifrit, who leaps eagerly into her arms, she still looks on with concern. The summoned creature, however, seems completely at ease, remarking that for Arin, this is nothing. With Aqualicia safely back, Arin draws his sword with a swift motion. Watching him, she realizes that as a holy knight, his true opponent is not just the beasts themselves, but the demonic magic they embody. Her mind flashes back to a previous moment when Arin, a holy knight who wields holy power, mentioned that he had been using magic since they first met, preparing to fly them to the main temple. This recollection clarifies the distinction for her. Magic is a power held within the body, whereas holy power overflows from the natural world itself, a sacred force from the domain of the gods, imperceptible to ordinary humans. She realizes with a start that she never knew Arin could use both. Her thoughts are cut short as Arin, his expression intensely focused, raises his hand. A brilliant light gathers in his palm, aimed directly at the demonic wolves. He thrusts his hand forward, pointing a single finger. A powerful beam of pure energy erupts, shooting towards the beasts with blinding speed. His holy power erupts in a blinding flash, instantly vaporizing the demonic wolves. Aqualicia, clutching Ifrit, can only stare as she is forced to once again reconsider the true extent of Arin's strength. In the quiet aftermath, she contemplates the brutal mission that has been assigned to him. She thinks about the unawakened heroine, the villainess's condemnation, Ifrit's curse, and now, demonic beasts appearing where they were never reported. All these disparate events seem to converge around Arin. Having dealt with the threat, Arin stands over the scorched earth where the wolves once were, his holy sword dematerializing into motes of light. He turns back towards Aqualicia, his expression softening into a gentle, reassuring smile as he announces that the danger has passed. He quickly approaches her, his voice filled with concern as he asks if she is unharmed. Startled by his closeness, Aqualicia confirms she is fine, attributing her safety entirely to his protection. She then confesses that she was terrified, her voice trembling as she wonders aloud what would have become of her had he been injured. Her genuine concern seems to catch Arin by surprise. She continues, explaining that her ignorance about demonic beasts, and even about the full extent of his own power, is precisely why she was so afraid. Her gaze meets his, tears forming in her eyes as she emphasizes just how deeply frightened she was for him. Overwhelmed, she begins to cry, thanking him profusely for his protection. But then she pleads with him, begging him to cherish his own life with the same fervor. She reminds him that he shouldn't be so reckless, as Ifrit relies on him, and that she doesn't want to be left alone again. Her heartfelt plea visibly moves him. Looking at her with a newfound gentleness, he tells her that her concern is not unwelcome, and he makes a solemn promise to do as she asks. He holds out his hand, and Aqualicia, clutching Ifrit, makes a solemn vow not to push herself too hard. His response is a brilliant, reassuring smile, as he declares his purpose is to protect her happiness. The sincerity of his words leaves Aqualicia flustered, her heart skipping a beat as she whispers his name. Moments later, their attention turns to the guide, who sits stunned on the ground. While Aqualicia checks on his well-being, Arin urges them to find their wagon and depart the dangerous forest without delay. The guide, recovering his composure, expresses his gratitude and offers to assist. He presents a small pouch, asking them to place any small, damaged, or misshapen items they find inside. As they gather the items, Aqualicia turns to him with a curious expression, finally asking the question that has been on her mind. Who exactly is he? The question hangs in the air, and she suddenly realizes she has no simple way to explain their own identities. A holy knight accompanied by a giant, crimson, two-tailed cat. To deflect the awkwardness, she points ahead with a cheerful smile, announcing that they are nearly at the bakery. Her sudden change of subject leaves the guide bewildered, and he can only offer a hesitant agreement as they approach a large building. Meanwhile, in a lavishly decorated room far away, Alice cries out in frustration. A bottle of ink has overturned, its contents spilling across her desk as she demands to know what is happening. Her fury mounts as she questions why events are not unfolding according to the scenario. A full year has passed, yet the epilogue she meticulously orchestrated, the true love ending with Eliana, has failed to materialize despite all her efforts. Her thoughts drift back to a pivotal moment from the original story. She recalls Crown Prince Christian's words to Aqualicia, explaining how perfectly the villainess's condemnation had played out. He had declared his feelings for the saintess were absolute, making it impossible for him to be engaged to the crown princess. She reflects on her relationship with Crown Prince Christian. He remains as kind as ever, but she senses his passion has cooled recently. Worse, she has heard unsettling rumors that his standing within the palace has become precarious. A wave of anxiety washes over her as she considers what would become of her own position if the sole son of the king were to fall from grace. Her frustration boils over, her hand clenching into a tight fist. She seethes, wondering why nothing is going according to plan. She was meant to become the saintess, be adored, marry into the throne, and achieve a happiness greater than anyone else's. Her bitter thoughts are cut short by a soft knock at her door, followed by a servant's voice announcing they are leaving. As the door swings open, Alice quickly composes herself and asks what the matter is. A servant informs her that a guest has arrived. Looking past him, she is startled to see a man with long, light-colored hair. He greets her with a warm smile, calling out her name. It is Guilford. Alice stares, momentarily speechless. He expresses his delight at seeing her and asks what brings her here today. With a radiant smile, Alice replies that she had also been hoping to meet with him. Guilford clarifies that he had no particular business. He simply came to see her. She immediately suggests they have tea in the garden, mentioning that someone named Dahlia is likely preparing it. He happily agrees. Alice then turns to a nearby attendant, asking him to prepare the tea and also to clean up a cup she had carelessly broken earlier. The attendant bows and departs, revealing the shattered remains of a teacup on the floor. As he leaves, Alice leans in close to Guilford, her sweet smile unwavering. She whispers a request, calling Christian a detestable man and asking Guilford to ensure he is utterly ruined. He listens as she continues, telling him how happy she is that he still cares for her so. He assures her it is no trouble at all. Guilford, a friend of Christian's from their student days, is now a member of the Second Night Order. A cunning smile spreads across Alice's face. She thinks to herself that having only the crown prince doting on her is not enough. Now that she has secured one of her capture targets, she cannot be stopped. Her thoughts then turn to his brother, Noah, another target. She cheerfully tells Guilford how lovely it was to see him and asks him to pass along her regards to Noah. Her eyes gleam with renewed conviction. It will be all right, she tells herself. After all, she is the heroine. This belief solidifies into a triumphant vision. She imagines herself surrounded by her capture targets, Christian, Guilford, and Noah, all still in love with her. There is no need to be impatient, she concludes. A future of supreme happiness is already promised to her. A crowd of grateful villagers gathers around Aqualicia, hailing her as the Holy Maiden. Overwhelmed by the sudden attention, she wonders why so many people have assembled. The villagers express their gratitude, relieved that the Holy Maiden has come to their aid. Their murmurs reveal the source of their anxiety. A monster has appeared near the village. A waitress interrupts, warning Aqualicia that if the dining hall becomes too crowded, they won't be able to eat. The crowd, however, is more interested in the news of the monster, but the waitress insists Aqualicia has a meal voucher to use. She shoos the noisy onlookers away, telling them to leave if they aren't eating. Seizing the opportunity, Aqualicia approaches the waitress and asks if she might borrow the kitchen. The waitress seems surprised, remarking that this is the third time Aqualicia has done so to prepare her own breakfast and lunch. She then turns to Arin, listing the ingredients she'll need: whole wheat flour, a bit of regular flour, and an egg. She adds that any leftover cheese or vegetables would also be useful. Aqualicia explains a local custom. The dining halls in this world do not have menus. The establishment decides what to serve, and patrons simply eat the meal provided. She demonstrates this by ordering the day's special, tomato and chicken soup, for 2 people. The waitress agrees, providing the requested ingredients and telling Aqualicia to use whatever she needs, as the cost will be added to her lodging bill. Aqualicia thanks her, politely asking not to be called Holy Maiden. The waitress acknowledges her request with a simple understood. With renewed focus, she begins to cook. She mixes a batter of whole wheat flour, salt, and water, spreading it thinly in a pan over low heat. She adds chopped ham, builds a border of cheese, cracks an egg into the center, and neatly folds the 4 sides of the crepe inward. As the egg sets, she seasons it with salt and pepper, arranges chopped tomatoes around the yolk, and lets it cook through. A final drizzle of olive oil completes the preparation. The dish is complete, a perfectly cooked whole wheat galette, steaming invitingly on the plate. Aqualicia approaches the table, tray in hand, only to find a somber, heavy atmosphere hanging over the villagers. She silently wonders what could be the cause of such a serious mood. The mood instantly brightens as she presents the freshly baked whole wheat galettes. Arin's eyes widen in pleasant surprise, while Ifrit chirps with pure delight at the sight of the meal. She feels a wave of nervous energy. It's one thing to eat alone in her room, but making food for others to judge makes her feel uncomfortably self-conscious. As they begin to eat, she turns to Arin with a serious expression, deciding to broach a difficult subject. She asks him what his thoughts are concerning His Highness the Crown Prince. He seems momentarily stunned by the question, but quickly composes himself. He explains that, as he'd mentioned before, the Crown Prince has been acting selfishly, becoming infatuated with a commoner woman. More recently, He adds, the prince's relationship with the king has soured. The conversation spreads through the dining hall. One villager whispers that the prince has been surrounding himself with women from his school days at the detached palace. Another complains that he's been neglecting his official duties and holing up in the capital. Two nearby soldiers join in, their voices filled with frustration. One exclaims that the prince is shirking his duties, while the other complains that the soldiers assigned to guard the detached palace by the king's own order are being treated unreasonably. The villagers' debate grows louder. One argues that the prince's actions are just, but another scoffs, questioning the prince's judgment for using royal soldiers to guard a single woman. Aqualicia simply eats, unable to refute the sound logic of their arguments. A sudden silence falls over the room. A man then speaks, his voice low, revealing that according to the soldiers, the king is deeply disappointed in the prince. He concludes that it wouldn't be surprising if his right of succession were revoked. The man's words strike a chord within her. She recalls her brother Alzer telling her that the crown prince wasn't solely focused on the heroine. A terrible realization dawns. Her broken engagement wasn't just about losing the Anne Shunford family support. The heroine hadn't awakened as a saint, and without that divine power, she couldn't become his companion. This was never supposed to happen. She clenched her fist, the news unsettling her deeply. It was the first time she had ever heard of the prince being so disliked, let alone rumors of his succession being in jeopardy. If what they said was true, then the entire future she knew was wrong. Her thoughts were interrupted by the heavy sighs of the man around her. The atmosphere had soured completely, ruining the meal. One man lamented that a person meant to rule the country had forgotten his duties, becoming infatuated with a woman. Aqualicia's own appetite vanished. As the gloom deepened, Arin looked over at her with a worried expression, sighing softly. Aqualicia was suddenly startled by a woman beside her, who remarked how strange it was that demons had begun to appear when they never had before. Another villager chimed in, mentioning the Nagon tea. She listened as their worried chatter continued. They couldn't enter the forest, which had caused a slump in trade. They fretted over what would become of the country. The air in the tavern grew heavier with each shared anxiety. In a flash of light, Ifrit materialized before her with a cheerful cry. He declared that the food looked delicious and demanded she feed him later. Startled, Aqualicia could only whisper his name, her eyes wide with surprise. Her shock gave way to a sudden, sharp realization. She remembered Ifrit's destiny. He was meant to protect this country alongside the crown prince and the heroine. That thought galvanized her. Aqualicia shot to her feet, the sound of her chair scraping across the floor silencing the room. She declared that she wouldn't allow them to direct any more hate towards those two. As every eye turned to her, she reached for a chain around her neck. She pulled a simple ring from beneath her collar and held it high. With a steady voice, she identified herself as the one sent away from the Anne Shunford ducal house. A wave of shock rippled through the crowd as they recognized the ducal crest and realized she was the holy maiden they had heard of. She then explained her presence, stating she was there on a request from the ducal house to investigate the Nagon, which the duke wished to acquire. When a man asked if she meant the foul-tasting beans, she acknowledged that the current Nagon was indeed delicious, expressing regret that they couldn't taste it at that moment. With growing confidence, she assured the villagers that once she made her report, the ducal house would act swiftly. She promised that they would send people to the Demetona borderlands to harvest the Nagon and bring it directly to their village. She addresses the villagers, explaining that while she has been investigating, she has confirmed the Nagon is indeed a valuable, top-quality product. She announces her plan. The ducal house's knights will accompany her into the forest, and they will bring the necessary cultivation supplies. A villager, confused, asks for clarification. She elaborates with conviction, stating that this will allow them to investigate the demon appearances while also securing the area for safe harvesting. It is a plan, she declares, that will provide both a large temporary income and long-term security. In response, the villagers erupt in a wave of joyous celebration, their faces alight with renewed hope. Their cheers fill the air with cries of amazing, and it's the holy maiden, no doubt about it. As the celebration swells, Aqualicia observes them quietly, a faint, pleased expression on her face. Her thoughts turn inward. She reflects that in any world, in any era, no government can ever satisfy all of its people. It is foolish to simply wait for the nation to change on its own. A look of firm resolve crosses her face. If one wants to change the world, she concludes, one must be the one to act. With renewed purpose, she declares that she will act for her own happiness. The first, most immediate happiness, she proclaims with a fist raised, is being able to eat delicious bread every day. A heavy bowl is set down, filled with a dark, lumpy, and thoroughly unappetizing mixture. The sight of it makes Arin recoil slightly, sweating as he hesitantly asks what it is. Beside him, Ifrit looks on with clear distaste, remarking that it does not look appetizing at all. Aqualicia, however, seems pleased. She admits that while it may look like mud, it is actually quite delicious. She then explains that 2 days have passed since their return from the border town of Demetona, and her ideal bait is finally complete. She holds the box of dark, lumpy bait, a gentle smile on her face. Her thoughts drift to a past life, a time when her happiness was as simple as eating delicious bread every day. She recalls the faces from that time, resolving to share that simple joy with everyone in this new world. Seeing the anxious, disgusted expressions of Arin and Ifrit as they stare at the sludgy mixture, her resolve hardens. To turn their unease into smiles, she declares her true intention. With this bait, she will make the most delicious bread imaginable. A small flicker of memory reveals Ifrit's fiery paws, a key ingredient in the concoction.